Evet, kapılar kapanıyor. Kapılar kapanınca da oturum başlıyor. Son bir...
If we are ready, as people are seated, we may start, I guess. And we are working with a German discipline, so clock is ticking, and we better start. I think upon the warning of distinguished president, I'd like to start, and we will be sticking to the time limit in this session. In this session, we will be discussing the global outlook to Turkish supply chain. And we have invaluable speakers representing the industry with us as speakers of the panel. We'll be hearing to their kind contribution. In terms of supply chain planning, I do believe that representing the various disciplines is quite important, which happened in design of the session. And without losing time, I would like to right away start the first round. We first will have 10 minutes given to each speaker, and the second round I'll give extra 2 minutes to every speaker. As much as possible, I will leave some time to the questions. And the first speaker will be, if I may, introducing Gökhan Serdar. He is the Vice President of TPI Composites, responsible for EMEA and India. Okay, Mr. Serdar, as a multinational Turkish company and as one of the biggest and the first in the sector, can you share your experiences with us as a local manufacturer? What are your gains in localization? So can you please be kind and provide us your assessment about the pains and gains in terms of the short-term vision of the sector? Yes, sir. Thank you very much. I have a PowerPoint presentation. Thank you, Mr. Hakan, for the wonderful organization. And it's really wonderful that all the stakeholders are just supporting the sector that much with this high level of attendance. It's really valuable. Hopefully, we'll be picking the fruits of these efforts. Now, I'd like to give you an outlook about the situation in Turkey, because when discussing the position of Turkey, we also need to take a look at the world. I'm not going to get into the details because we're all familiar with all the figures, but in 2016 gigawatts of an installed capacity was there, and it's up to 580 gigawatts, so we're speaking about 60 gigawatts of annual installations. So the sector is growing quite rapidly with many factors that are effective here. This is about the past, but what happens with the future? Yes, in the future, the sector will keep on growing around the globe. Maybe offshore will be growing even faster. We're speaking about an 18% of long-term growth for offshore, but in onshore, there's an ongoing 3% of growth. Okay, we've been discussing about Turkey, where we have come from and what we are destined to go. From 2008, 363 megawatts up to 7,369. It is really remarkable. Putting the figures on next to each other, we've seen a wave of growth grow globally. Turkey may be coming from behind, but I think it's really remarkable yet. Globally speaking, TPI Composites is the largest independent composite blade manufacturer based in the United States, excluding China, because China, you know, is a market that has the unique dynamics. But the TPI Composites has been manufacturing for 5 of the largest producers, especially the trend of the electrified vehicles, I think, is complementing the wind trend in terms of green energy. But although we're mostly working on blades, we are concentrating in other domains, particularly for the future. How about the locations? So far, we've been present in 3 big hubs for our facilities of manufacturing, mainly Turkey, China, and Mexico. Also, there is manufacturing in the States, but States is mostly concentrated on the automotives and the design works, where the blade is not the main issue. But one thing to note here, there is another extra hub, a new base for manufacturing. India will be introduced in 2020. Actually, what is important for us for India is, as we discussed in the previous presentations, actually, there has always been some concentration about the competence of the Turkish human power. And also it's been a good example to that, because it was the Turkish team that was involved in the installation works of the factory in India. Actually, it's not about, when going back to 5 years ago, blades was brand new to us. And we were going through an examination manufacturing the blades. But the same team has become a benchmark to the world. And thanks to that benchmark, the team was there in building facilities in a place that is out of the EMEA region. So this shows how Turkish people are competent about. And as a small piece of the puzzle, I do consider this as a big job, because at the end of the day, it's a teamwork from cook to the driver. The same is true for us. It's the result, it's the consequence of all the series of works done by a team. Turning back to Turkey, the facility was introduced back in 2012, and with the second facility, TPI Turkey was awarded the second auction, and 3,200 employees have been there to be involved in the manufacturing of Europe, Middle East, and African markets. We've been producing for Vestas, Siemens Gamesa, Enercon, and Nordex. 70% is exported, but recently we've been exporting 90%. So as a balance, of course, of our imports-exports, it's always been an important part of our job. At the end of the day, we're speaking about a 60 gigawatt market. TPI, together with the coming up growth, is serving for 1/4 of the existing capacity, including China. 1 out of every 4 blades manufactured. This is going to be our target for next year. Looking at Turkey, it's a 4 gigawatt capacity that we have for Turkey, 400 megawatts, so it means 10% of our capacity. But even if it goes up to 1,500, it will eventually be 1/3 of our capacity. So TPI Turkey is not solely serving for Turkey. This I can show with this slide. Yes, the market is Europe logistically, mainly, but at the same time we are sending blades everywhere around the globe as of today. This has always been so since our first day of foundation. How about TPI's role in localization and the ecosystem created? We've provided local content to 6 major projects of 4 major customers. I think is a very important implication of this. In terms of creating that supply chain in Turkey, I think this has been an remarkable factor, with many, of course, contributing factors, like including the correct policies. This we keep saying. We've come today with the correct policies. This, I think, has been quite remarkable. Plus, with the efforts of the international suppliers and companies, we've created a supply chain here. There is a nice slogan we're using here, wind national matter. Wind power, national matter. This really is important. Also, the entry of foreign capital is really important. As a country, we need capital. Also, this also contributes to human resources and know-how with an added value technology. The skills of making a competitive and high-quality manufacturing by the supply chain to the global market is really important. At the end of the day, the global people are coming to Turkey with their know-how, will contribute to the know-how improving in Turkey. Not only that, but also the fact that the high-quality processes like the ERP, automation, digitalization, lean management, these are all the philosophies that will will also be introduced into the way of functioning. And of course, another thing that we're contributing is employment. I mean, this is something that really directly links to the national matter, because employment is always a problem for Turkey. Turkish engineering and labor has become reputable within brackets. This also contributes to the Turkey's reclamation. Whoever we've seen in India, they are positioning Turkey differently. I mean, it's just like the how we perceive Europeans when they come to Turkey to build up new factories. It is the same when we go to India. Our prestige, our image in the eye of the Indian people has changed. I mean, this would have never happened if it weren't for these policies. You can see the evolving local suppliers all represented. You can see there is a significant supply basis already established for this country. Is it enough? No, not to my opinion. Yes, we've come to a remarkable group of people. Some of the suppliers are with us today. We've gained a lot. We've just made a lot of contribution. But yet, maybe it's not been so for some of them, but for most of our suppliers, we have not yet reached the competitive edge. And that is true for us as well. Competitiveness is really important. This we keep saying all the time. But then comes in another factor within the picture. As discussed yesterday by the global CEOs, in the wind sector, there is an incredible competition going on, making things a bit tougher for us. I mean, not just a way of thinking. We need to be competitive based solely on the macroeconomic criteria, but there are a bunch of other criteria that we need to consider if we want to be competitive globally. It's not just the TPI or the turbine manufacturers, but at the same time, the suppliers of TPI should also be considered in terms of finances, in terms of incentives. I think we need to make this value more brighter so that we'll have more examples like TPI. We spoke about the ecosystem, you remember, and we need to make our own sub-suppliers to the point of making exports. So it comes back maybe to the chicken and the hen issue, but yes, we've come with very nice policies. We may be going through some turbulence though now, but what has brought us up to this point may not carry on us onwards. So as a government, as this private sector, as the companies and agencies, I think that we need to consider the whole issue from different corners. This is what I think. So to wrap up, my highlights and take-home message is, yes, the Turkish market is really important. Predictability is really the most important issue that we keep discussing, but what we have in hand as a material is something bigger than that. These are, the facto, the things that should be there, but we need to open up more to the world, and to make Turkey as a hub, we need to be more ambitious, which I think there is no doubt that it is accomplishable considering what we have as human labor in Turkey. Thank you. Thank you. We are not only exporting blades, but obviously competencies at the same time, which is an important indicator. When you look at the renewable sector, yes, turbulence, the sector may be going through some turbulence, particularly in periods of transition. Also under the pressure of economic downturn, the sectors may be going through challenges. Therefore, particularly about EPC, some companies in Turkey just are opening their gates to other markets, which I think is really important, valuable. And the take-home message, what has brought us up to this point, may not carry us onwards. This, I think, may be the take-home message from your presentation. And it is important how you've taken a photograph of the supply chain. So TPI should not be a lone stander in an environment where competition is getting tougher. what kind of strengths can be used to respond to the changes. So thank you very much for your contribution. Now I'd like to turn to another important name. Ateş Çelik, Board of Directors Vice President Mahmut Güldoğan will be speaking about the wind of localization. What would you say about maturity, and how can we catch up with maturity, and what are the risk fields in local manufacturing? What are the factors that would make Turkey enablers? And how about your new projects? Can you please speak about your new projects? Thank you.
Çok teşekkür.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank to the association and the president of the association for the opening ceremony yesterday. We just feel how important our industry is. And he actually delivered a very emotional talk, and will be leaving the conference very much motivated. We also have a motto. Once you first heard a motto, whether it is ear-catching or not, it's pretty ear-catching. In 1 second, we have be leaving the conference with motivation and also with an ear-catching motto. The previous TWEC conferences were great, but next year it will be in Izmir, which is perfect. And
Tamam. Şimdi başkanım, siz bizim fabrikamıza gelmediğiniz için biz
you have never came to our factory, so it's not a presentation, I just will show you the photos. First of all, we owe an apology. I think it is a bit confusing, our name. It was Ateş Çelik, that is Ateş Steel, but we were actually manufacturing tower, and this year we're also manufacturing generators, so this time Ateş Wind Power. I don't like to use actually English words. We cannot find the Turkish version. Ateş Çelik is a name that we already know. So Ateş Çelik and Ateş Wind Power, will be using both. Sorry for that. And we enjoyed this photo a lot. Why? Because it is, as you would appreciate, it's so nice. It's a big thing, and it's an employee, a worker that we actually educated and quite concentrated on the job. You can see he doesn't care about what is going on outside, just focusing on his actual job. This is our facility. It is actually at a distance of 3 kilometers to Çandarlı and 20 km to Ali Ağa Port, 250 acres of land, 2 factories there. And on Çanakkale highway, very close to the ring road, so logistically it's very important. And we actually have the towers, we have the blades, we have the generators, and actually this is the hub that we all dreamed of, and so it's very nice for us. So that's actually the gratitude and highs from our employees, as you can see. This is actually the office building. I hope one day you will have the chance to come and visit us. From time to time we do brainstorming all together and discuss about the problems and try to have more participation. That is the ladies volleyball team. At the second league, Ateş Çelik, Bergama Çelik. And we win 3 of the games so far, and hopefully we'll be at the Premier League next year. You know, we pay a lot of attention to women employment, and this is so nice, as you all know. These are different incentives for the employees. These are the towers that we store. We were actually the only factory in the world having the tower manufacturer next to a wind farm. These are the towers crossing the straits. There was a bulletin from our association in Serbia the largest, manufacturing, the wind power plant, one of the largest in Europe, established. And we are just sending it to Constanța, then to Serbia from the Danube. And 95 units sent. And for General Electric, also our customer, thank you very much for trusting us for the GE for such a project, because one single supplier for the entire project, and something they actually do not prefer. And you can see there's a Turkish flag right on the left side. And this is these are the very first generators that we manufacture. And the very first delivery. As you can see, the one on the left side, 9 meter in diameter, such a generator. And to Enercon, I would like to thank, a very distinguished customer of us. They're relying on us. The one on the right side, the generator, that's a direct drive generator. And according to the gearbox technology, it actually has the generator, the gearbox all together, so it's actually quite a huge attack. And together with Germany, we produced it in Turkey for the first time, which is actually a source of pride for all of us. That's the most critical photo. What Turkey is offering to the world, that is what I would like to show you. The one on the left top, September 2, 2018, we laid the foundation. On the right side, as you can see, acceptance of the turbine. It is September 2019, date of acceptance. Of course, we also would like to thank to the public agencies besides our customer. They visited us a lot, and under the leadership of Ramazan and the department, they really supported us a lot, and they asked a lot of questions. They helped us a lot, and especially what we believe is that
Sağ taraftaki büyük türbine yolculuk
therefore it is 1 year, a timeline of 1 year from the left to the right side. Therefore, this is the success of the entire, if you're asking me that. So that's what I would like to share. Just a couple of more, I don't have any more photos to show you, but just my comments that I would like to share with you.
son 2 Kasım 2017'de burada görüşmüştük.
So, 2 years ago, I was there, 2 years, 4 days, 2017, TWEC. I was with Gökhan at that time, and our president were sitting with us in the name of Siemens, and Saygın as representing the consortium at that time. So we have established a new plant facilities in 2 years' time. Gökhan also, they established, even in 2 stage, I guess, for Enercon, even a new building that they built. Siemens at the same time built a new manufacturing facility. How about Turkey as a whole? 5.3% of a growth rate at that time. Now there is actually a recession of 1.5, minus 1.5 of growth, and it was 10% of an unemployment rate, but now it is 13%. The overall Turkey figures. In 2 years' time, you can understand it was actually a good investment on wind energy. It was paying off naturally. During the talks, from time to time, I feel like the incentives are a burden for the state. No, this is not the case. And together with the president, I would like to also make an academic study. The only self-paying industry in Turkey in these challenging periods is only the wind. We have incentives in all industries in Turkey. For geothermal, there are incentives. For houses, again, it's okay, they can. For the construction industry, they also give incentives. But my point is that the return on investment for the government is the best for us. So this is something very peculiar for our industry, in my opinion. Looking at the panelists, I think that is also a reflection of our willingness. And I have a question for you. We have a very developed supplier, at the corporate level, and the export figures, their sales volume is great. We are with Aselsan. Siemens is of course together with us. Siemens Gamesa of course now. We are with Aselsan, and what I understand actually is that there is actually the need to deepen down this localization, and we also have to use our mind. I don't know, knowingly or unknowingly, there is a message on the table. So my question to you is, the head of the department, who will be sitting in 2 years' time on this panel? Do you think the 5 people in here will change? I hope there will be new players in the next panel. So also parallel to what you asked, maturation, at which level we are. Kocatepe project, for example, looking at the turbines, the blades are local, tower is local. The only thing that we can do is that we, I think, at the second generator is local. This is the direct drive, and therefore the other parts are actually metal. Whether we are mature enough or not, of course not. I mean, I think the one time that we are mature is not a good thing. I think we're just going through a maturation process. There is no doubt about this, and I hope that actually this will change. Especially we have to work hard for the component suppliers, and at the same time, Aselsan, a brain power for Turkey. Maybe we should set them as an example, and we actually have to be more creative, or at least what I feel like is that this is what is expected from us. I think there is a consensus in the industry. Our potential is 1500 megawatt, but we should not go under 1000. That is the consensus. Consider this as an interval, a range. I mean, if it is 1,000, maybe 800 and 1,000, 1,300 to 1,500, let's say. And the production capacity of the industry is 5,000 megawatts, 4 to 5,000. I mean, considering the tower, the generator, the blade, and it's, of course, maybe it's not at that level, but it will develop, improve. So it gives us 2 messages. And I think we have to answer the 2 questions in here. We created a 1 to 5 leverage effect, in my opinion. I mean, for the wind industry, each 1,000 megawatt in the wind industry will turn back to as 5,000 megawatts. And you can at the same time ask the question, maybe, I also would like to underline that, how we can make it 1 to 10. I think we should ask that question. And I think an answer to this question, I mean, is, if you're asking me, we have to have a good development at the suppliers industry. Why? Because in the course of time, we have less conversion time, flexibility, global competition. Just like in the automotive industry, the suppliers are very important. I mean, we can only possibly make it with the suppliers. And I think for the industry, but before that, if you do that much export, why you need the local market? Maybe you can ask that question. The reason why we need the industry is that the technology producers actually should continue to be attractive about Turkey. They have to see Turkey as a market, as a target market. And at the same time, they have to come to Turkey always with their new technologies. And if the stable volume cannot be created, and let's assume one company, if they do export, in the next model, it could mean that they will never do any production at all. If we want something sustainable, then an 800 to 1200 range should be considered, and we should be keeping this pace all the time. Predictability, if you're asking, 5 to 7 years. In my opinion, for 5 to 7 years, we should go between 800, 1200, then 30% will be used locally. And by the way, I'm representing 5 to 6 tower manufacturers. So 25, 30% local, 70% abroad. And all our teams, our machines, our plant facilities should always be updated. That's what we should try to do. Another important topic, we once did 1300 and 400. These are actually going down and up. It is not killing the industry, but because of this we are aging fast. 400 megawatts we go down. We cannot say nothing happens. Trust me, it is aging us, and especially it is not something positive for the upcoming investments. Now, of course, our goal, all of us, is of course how we can make 1 to 5, 1 to 10. And I think our stakeholders should assume responsibility, but I think I've been talking too much. I'm sorry then. It's okay. I will skip the second round, okay? So you can continue to talk because in terms of time management. Okay then, very fastly. Now, I don't want to intervene. You're saying good things, but of course I would like to get questions as well. So, the public requires a capacity, a stable capacity, and that's what we want. They should offer it. There's actually the investment incentive. That's for the blade and the generator. These are the investment priorities for tower, and the other components are with regards to the other materials. That's not the case. Therefore, this incentive system for the entire wind industry should be deployed. What I mean is, it's extremely important. I mean, then this vertical integration cannot be possible. And if we fail in the vertical integration, not possible to move from 1 to 5 to 1 to 10. This is number one. Number two, I mean, the support that we ask from the public is the support that they give to the investors for localization. If you would like to be a hub, whichever country will be serving, the equipment to be used in those countries should be given priority. I mean, they can also provide with some advantages. So it can help us to be a better hub. I mean, then we will literally be a hub. What I mean is, if the blade manufactured in Turkey is going to be used in Georgia, then, and if that is the technology company X, then there is the need to provide with some advantages to that company X. So there are certain responsibilities of the investors, and I enjoyed a lot the afternoon session. You mentioned about mobilization to educate the people, right? Especially you mentioned about the Turkish industry being more active abroad, and the $1 billion of gas consumption is prevented. As you mentioned, of course, this also should be considered. I think the industrials should be brave. We have to be more brave. And especially we have to reinforce our ties with the universal values, all about safety, security, and health and safety at work. We have to be competitive, plus remain competitive. And this competitive edge should be sustained. That's important. And it requires more effort. We have to be flexible, because once in every 18 months new models are coming up, and conversion times at the same time should be shorter. And another thing, what we're doing is something good. I mean, it is good and decent by its nature. So corporate social responsibility projects should be used. For example, there was a support given to the Ministry of Forestry, and congratulations for that. So thank you very much for your attention. I don't want to actually interrupt you. That's the reason why. So, and I think it is important that everyone should hear what you're saying. Thank you very much for your energy and synergy, and at the same time. But we really made good use of your talk. And Gökhan, at the same time, you also actually become complimentary for what Gökhan said. So we actually close our ears with the first photo, as you mentioned. So therefore you have good concentration. So I think it's for Ateş Wind Power. Maybe we should call Ateş only, or Ateş Çelik, or Ateş Wind Power. I think in your success story that is important. For 2 years, I mean 2 years ago, I thought that you're just a tower manufacturer. and I thought maybe they can go up to 60, 70, 80% in localization, but now they're doing direct drive generator, and at the same time you have several investments at different areas, and in 2 years time, I'm sure that we will have a growing, larger ateş çelik. I don't know, maybe GE, Vestas, Nortel, Nordex. SGM is also here. We would like to be sitting here at the panel all together. Yes, for wind and renewables, I mean, in general, of course, it is important. I mean, sustainability is actually serving the development goals. So, in terms of gender equity, you also shown us a photo. Same for the solar energy at Adıyaman, for example. The more woman employment that we have. For sustainable, I mean, actually 7 or 8 out of the sustainability criteria you have, because it's also part of the regional development. And therefore, especially it is important for diversity of resources, for supply security, but we have wind, solar, geothermal, biomass, in all fields we have a good improvement. Walk to talk, actually, we said, right. And so you mentioned it's very important to do a proper planning and analysis. And in terms of being a regional export hub, it's very important to get exempt credits. I think new planning should be made. The leverage effect that you mentioned, it should be 1 to 10 from 1 to 5. That could be an important target and goal. For the industry, of course, I mean the public side, private sector, the finance institutions, I mean, they all must be in dynamism. So, thank you very much for this wrap-up. I think now at the point of the supply chain, from Siemens Gamesa and Necmettin for the supply chain. In the supply chain, in this period of time, despite all the problems that you have, there are some mature areas, especially to go 1 to 10 from 1 to 5. What is going on? What we can do? What's going on the field? Especially from the global market perspective, when you look at the other success stories, how do you think Turkey can further improve the supply chain? Of course, stability is important. There's no doubt about this. For example, an energy and mining policy in 10 years' time, 10,000 megawatt. That is actually 800 to 1,200. You mentioned that there must be a range. This 1,000 megawatt for having an installed capacity as such, you actually have to have a demand more than that, because there are some delays in the process. Of course, we have improvements in paperwork, but there could be some pauses. There's actually a pile-up of projects. And of course, it is, from this perspective, therefore, Siemens Gamesa, of course, considering the global perspective as well, what would you like to share with us? Thank you.
Herkese merhabalar. Sizleri saygıyla selamlıyorum. Öncelikle Sayın Başkanım Hakan Bey, dünkü açılış muhteşemdi.
Thank you very much. By the way, the opening ceremony yesterday was fabulous. The messages were really wonderful and were very motivating for us. As I'm not saying this as an employee of Siemens Gamesa, but I'm saying this as a Turk. Now, before moving on to Siemens Gamesa, key facts, the yesterday's motto was really rightful. I mean, wind power, national matter, and even global matter, just to meet the needs of energy globally. I think there is a new need to find new ways of meeting this need. Siemens Gamesa, with a globally installed capacity of 95 gigawatts, it is a global company working in different portfolio, has more than 23,000 employees. Offshore, onshore, and service. You can see we're always in top 3. And the colored, shaded places are the ones that we are ranking in top 3. And these are intensive markets. I mean, we are all familiar with Siemens Gamesa or the global players, but I don't want to bore you in details because, essentially I want to discuss Turkey. Now, turning to Turkey, as discussed yesterday by Hakan, from 2009 to up to date, the first half is now over. In the first half, we've started with the tower. And with the tower, speaking about megawatts, and it's not we're just welding, painting, or just to put it, we were focusing on simpler works with less added value. But as years passed by, there has been a tremendous increase in local content from steel to services. We're now in the way of resolving the problems on site. Anchorages, you can see, blades, foundations. Actually, the market is quite enthusiastic and the acceleration is quite fast. Everyone is considering it as a race. Let's do it, let's do that, and let it finish. So, as you know, from this perspective, we're about to start the second half of the game, like what we can do in the coming decade. Now we're in a more advantageous position, but there are some factors that are blocking our way, as I will discuss in a minute. There are, of course, people supplying towers, blades, and as nacelle, we have just reached a big maturity in towers and blades. And we're at the local companies are at the level of exporting, which shows that now Turkish companies have reached a significant maturity. They've become competitive in the global market, and they're ranking amongst the top suppliers. So gradually, we need to go on to the sub-items of the nacelle: cooling system, hub, mainframe. These kind of sub-components, I think, will need to be considered. Particularly for the future. In terms of making the supplier network and portfolio larger in Turkey, I think these are immensely important. You know that the ECA 1 brought two good things to us, which I am proud to say as a citizen of the Republic of Turkey. We have two hats. Siemens Gamesa is a global company. Yes, we're under its roof, but at the same time, we are the citizens of this country, so we should always consider and protect the interests in this country, meanwhile providing input. So the aim is not just to provide an added value to the company, but at the same time to the country. So R&D activities have been discussed so far, but it's not about just starting R&D centers. But just to give you a single example, Spain and Denmark are the two centers where Siemens Gamesa has R&D centers. But after these countries, Turkey comes, and we have high expectations. It's not just about being an engineering service provider, but a center to add value or create value. On the other hand, we should have 80% local content, only 20% international content, but there has been no international employment so far. 100% local, 100% Turkish nationals, and we have very valuable, high-profile people coming around the world, but they're also Turks. So this is an advantage, competitive edge for us, because about all the CVs going from Turkey, there is a very good positive feedback coming from the headquarters. And I'm speaking about the nacelle factory also. But without expecting the process there, we've been just providing some positioning. What have we done so far? In terms of turbine installations, we've built more than 1.3 gigawatts, corresponding to more than 450 turbines. As years pass by, of course, we want to progress also by improving. Since 2009, there has been a slower know-how transfer, but after 2019, we expect a faster way of working from our side. It's not just about creating an ecosystem for suppliers, of course. I mean, let's just do it, let's build it, and the investors are there, we're all here. I mean, it's not just an energy policy, or it's not just about trading, but there are some criteria about environment, health, and safety. So the suppliers we're working with in Turkey, we've always emphasized that in everything that we do with them. I mean, these are as important as quality or as cost. We want to get to the level of zero occupational accidents, zero environmental impact. We want to improve energy efficiency. How can we achieve it? We need to create awareness, ownership, and prevention. It's not just about our business, but at the same time, it's just about also about our houses. I mean, our friends, our family. We need to learn, because there are standards out there. They need to be implemented and followed up. So there is a continuous improvement that we need to accomplish. And after that, we can have a healthy, safe, and environmentally friendly ecosystem. So we care about it very much. And for this slide, you can see that here you can see the supply chain structure in Turkey, how we can make it more competitive. There are 5 main pillars, factors that we consider as important. Skilled workers, I mean, understanding, improving, implementing workers or labor. There is a big defense industry and a big automotive industry. So we have the capacity to transfer this into wind, I think. Knowledge transfer, I mean, we don't own technology. I don't say, I mean, I'm saying this for Turkey. So we're transferring technology. Us and other technologies are making sure a flow of technology and knowledge to Turkey, which I think is expected to grow. Actually, in our market, on the investor side and the supplier or OEM sides, long-term planning is not possible. I think this is a big gap in Turkey. From 1,500 megawatts, we've come down to 400. We don't know what megawatts will be next year's target. So it's very fluctuating, very volatile, which is a big problem for us because we need volume. Annual 1 gigawatts needed, as Hakan said yesterday. Mahmoud said 800 to 1,200. I would say not less than 1,500. We need the volume because in the global scale, high volume, low cost. This is the equation that is out there in the global market. If you consider the Chinese market and to be competitive on the global scale, we need volume, which is predictable. On the other hand, from the investor's perspective, there is some problem about financing, and financing is getting to be challenging in Turkey, which is a factor. Yektem is about to be over, so what then? What happens for the investors? As discussed about the blades, about some other components, there is the 5th region incentive, but not for the blades, unfortunately. So as an ecosystem, a one-stop shop should be created to consider all the components. But yet, in Turkey, we can create a very competitive supply chain. This is what we're trying to do. We're having trouble, but we are ambitious, and we keep on doing. But what happens next? I do think slowly and gradually that we are getting to be competitive on the global scale. Quality, safety matters, the correct delivery, correct time, correct place. I think it's also important to be able to do that with the low cost. Turning back to your question, what is there in our agenda? As I tried to emphasize in my presentation, nacelle, tower, and blade, it's okay in the pocket, and we have the advantage of having the nacelle center, the factory, so we can manufacture all the components in Turkey. So R&D center is intensively used. And in terms of improving the supply chain, we have activities in the nacelles of the R&D center. and soon there will be, of course, the fruits to be picked. Thank you. Okay, we have talks complementing each other, and just continuing from where the previous speaker stopped. Mr. Necmettin said the first half is over, but now we are about to start the Industry 2.0. I mean, we should do the staging. This is a journey that is destined for 2050. Because the many developed countries are making their decarbonization plans for 2050. Turkey, as an advanced and well-developed country, is willing to use its own resources at the maximum level. And particularly speaking for the renewable side, yes, in resources it's local, but in equipment it's not completely local. And then of course we'll discuss how the localization can be achieved in technology. In renewables, of course, there is a know-how transfer, 80 to 20%, but from the example of Ateşçilik, Siemens, TPI, we now get to understand that in Turkey now, in wind, we're in the position of exporting technology. So the need of transferring know-how still is there, but yet Turkey in some aspects is getting to export know-how to its own region. And of course, there is emphasis for sustainability, health, standards on one side, the cost, but quality on the other hand seems to be a big factor. So wind is quite different than the solar, although they may be quite similar in many aspects. The sectors are interrelated, so the co-creation must be quite high in this sector. Teamwork, co-creation, maybe more in the Nordic countries with the example of Sweden and Denmark. But in this respect, I have to say that the sector should be considered as a part of the global market and should continue as an accessible sector in terms of predictability and sustainability. On the public side, I think some gains have been made and some improvement still is there. The need for improvement is still there, but in terms of the projection for after 2020, the process will also continue with some maturity. The competencies gained will have to be again considered as a part of improvement. Absolutely, I think we need to do more for an annual 1,000 megawatts. The TWEC model was just made to make this possible. Technology, local content, and the effective participation of Turkey in renewables, together with the mini renewables. There are the YECA 2 model in 4 different regions. Probably in the days to come, YECA 2 will have some implications over solar. So it means that it's a learning process, both in terms of the international best practices we're learning, and we're learning from each other within ourselves. May I add something?
Now, looking at the global best practices, it is not about having a certain localization rate and impose a sanction if not. There are so many practices like this. I think it should be considered thoroughly, and together with the stakeholders, something proper must be identified, otherwise it would fail. Thank you for this. I mean, not as an incentive only. I mean, we should open up the path for this. Yes, different synergies and different, again, pros and cons that we have. There's no doubt about this. This is a learning process. And wind energy in particular is actually is an important leading pioneer. I mean, wind is actually a pioneer for the energy and sector as well. So I have no doubt that it would continue to be proactive. So now let's move to the next panelist, Tamer Bozacı, from Dorksan, the Chief Commercial Officer, I guess, Dorksan. Tamer Bozacı, again, about the things that we do not discuss a lot. it is always tower blade that we focus on, or the nacelle that we always focus on, but we never go one step down. So we can say you are the new bright star. So as to support the supply chain in Turkey, what are the synergies, what you're doing? Would you please provide information to us, to the participants? Thank you very much, distinguished moderator and the participants. I would like to thank to the entire team of Turkish Wind Energy Association. We are a new participant, by the way. It is the first year for us, but we enjoyed it a lot. So maybe get prepared for what you'll be discussing in 2 years' time. No problem, I will mention about that. Yeah, so we are just very happy. I mean, it's actually a world-class event, and therefore congratulations. I'm just more than happy to participate. The Turkish composite exhibition that we had, we were at the same panel with Hakan at that time. I also delivered a presentation. You showed us the below the sea level of the iceberg, not the tip. What we are doing as the AXA, how we contribute to this industry, what more we can do. That's what I'll be sharing with you. Now, the composite material market, as you can see. Composite, as you all know, is going to be the material of the future. And the wind energy is a major player, corresponding to 13% for now, for all composite materials, and the third largest segment. It is the aviation and defense industry, automotive wind. What is specific is that not much people know about this, but as you know, Vestas is one of the major suppliers, and Vestas is actually all alone using the biggest amount. And therefore, for wind, maybe this can be actually a benchmark for you. So, as for the composite industry. Now, carbon fiber, it's something very special, a strategic material, and especially so as to increase productivity at different platforms in automotive industry, in defense aviation, civil aviation, wind. So it actually has quite a nice leverage effect. And at the very bottom down, you can see a black and white photo. I'm actually trying to tell you all the time. You see the carbon fiber and human hair comparison. The carbon fiber is actually the thin one, as you can see, 1/10 of the human hair. And the strength is also so important. And why carbon fiber? Because carbon fiber is actually lighter 4 times, and also from the glass fiber. It's actually very reliable, strong, and 5 times stronger than steel, 2 times tougher than steel, aluminum, and glass fiber. And therefore, it is actually, you can see from BMW i3, and this is Anka, as you can see, also so much carbon fiber. So we also actually produce new materials, special materials for them.
Sisteminden olacak. Baykar'ın tüm uçakları şu anda uçan.
So, as you can see, especially for the unmanned vehicles, we also have this. So carbon fiber, why carbon fiber we are saying, especially for us, why it is important. First of all, we have the wind turbines. There's the evolution of the wind turbines, as you can see in here, as megawatt. In particular, 0.5 megawatt, 13, 15 megawatt. That's the evolution. And carbon fiber is actually a lever to support that, because it is stiff, it is very strong, and therefore, especially, it is fatigue strength is so good, so you can just put it aside and forget about this. And therefore, these are the things that come forward. Here is an example for you where it is used at the blade. As you can see at the upper part, there is actually the spark caps, and especially the carbon fiber profiles are located on both sides. that's the mechanism that actually supports the entire blade, and it is possible to produce longer. Why polyurethane? First of all, composite is formed of two things: the fiber itself, and there could be different forms of it, and the other is the resin. In the resin, it is polyurethane that we use. Polyurethane, it's actually has the same mechanical properties with epoxy and vinyl ester, even much better. It also has a price advantage. Today, for in the conventional pultrusion line, I mean, we can the pultrusion line can be operated more than double speed with polyurethane resin system than epoxy, especially, you know, it is cost intense sector, so we have to contribute to the cost. Therefore, material selection is important, the scale and all. Therefore, we actually have a huge potential in here, so as to support this industry. In the upcoming slides, I again will underline, but from the very beginning, for integration to this industry, we always talk to ourselves that we actually have to be strategic. These are the strategic goals that we have. I mean, looking at our stakeholders, partners, they're always producing high volumes, and of course, especially in terms of cost, I mean, we are really having an important touch. So from the very beginning, we've been doing this. Why pultrusion? Now, carbon fiber is already used in the blades. Maybe in fabric form, it is being used as pultrusion. It's also used, but pultrusion is important. Why? Because for all fibers, you combine them with the resin and you form a piece sheet, a plate. The strength of carbon comes from the length. I mean, the fiber should not be bent, so its strength can be reflected to structure. Once we do the pultrusion, these are our actual goals, and that's what we succeed in doing. So I actually will tell you more what TWEC is doing, but we are a technology company. We develop technology, and we do our own know-how, and TWEC actually is selling know-how. The carbon fiber know-how is sold abroad. So it's just an indication of the level of development, I can say. It's actually, our center is in the Netherlands. By the way, we are a global company, and the only production operation that we have is actually in our facility at Yalova. In Russia, we have 33% owned by us with the company NCC. They're also developing composite systems. And as the location, as you can actually see the other carbon producers. So, especially for the newly developing, newly emerging geographies, we are just at a very close point. US, Japan, for example, they're our competitors. They're mainly in Japan and the States, but they have actually reached to a mature development level. But now we are around the emerging geographies, and that is the reason why, especially except for our local consumption, we also have several advantages in terms of export. So the Dow, it's actually 50-50, Dow Chemicals and AXA Acrylic. Dow AXA comes from there. And in 2012, we were established. I'm representing the AXA side, and I am the team from the AXA side, and also I'm the head of the team developing this carbon fiber technology. After merger with Dow in 2012, we've been running two of the facilities, and the technology is from the AXA side. Dow strong at the resin side. At the epoxy, I can say the epoxy they sold it, but they actually have a certain know-how. So Dow, by the way, is actually for AXA Acrylic, and therefore these two giants actually emerged, and therefore we actually have a baby that was born. So our main goal in here is for our shareholders. Maybe we're not going to be close to Dow, but probably we can get close to AXA, I guess, in volume. So that is our location, and as you can see, it is composed of a couple of factories. I mean, the acrylic and the carbon fiber. It's next to the Marmara Sea, as you can see, the Marmara Sea, and we have AXA, our shareholder, and we're next to them. The red is TWEC, those in red. marked in red are DAWAXA. And we generate our own energy from natural gas or coal. So we generate our own electricity and steam, and 200 megawatts. And so the electricity and steam comes from there. And we can also produce our own water desalination from the sea. We also have different water resources. And TWEC is for textile industry. And so this entire, in terms of installed capacity, and the entire carbon fiber, I mean, they provide for 2 times more of the entire raw material demand. The AXA, of course, when compared to AXA, the capacity of AXA is 315,000 tons per year. It is 10,000 tons per year. And once you turn it to carbon fiber, we can possibly produce it in a high amount. We have our own polymerization unit other than AXA for our fiber, carbon fiber as well. In 2 different units we do the production. Akim company groups, again, as sister company, they actually produce our solvents, and at the same time the finishing. Therefore, we can actually get carbon fiber out of it eventually. So what we're doing with the DAWAXA is a technology company, as I told you, and they actually develop carbon fiber, and they put different applications on the top of it. Especially for wind, there is a certain process, a certain product, where open and closed systems. You can see the conventional open system for pultrusion. It is about impregnation, and then we get the resin, and then it is in laminated form. In the system that we develop is a closed system, better control. The carbon fiber and polyurethane combined, and polyurethane soaked carbon fiber as a hard sheet that we have. For DAWAXA, we would like to be a major player, and that's how we set our strategies. Low cost, several low cost products that we have, 6 different products that we have in the range in terms of the volume, and we have the 24K, as we call this product that we work on, and we are just trying to reduce the cost, and so as to contribute significantly to the wind energy. We have full integration. We have a huge growth potential. I've already shown you the land that we occupy, and therefore for all the players in here, carbon fiber reinforced materials that we can offer to you, and especially in terms of localization, we can significantly contribute to you. Resin is from the Gebze facility. It's again local. Of course, Dow also has international activities. We use all their competencies. Therefore, the chemistry side, I can say, both from the polymer down to the blade, all these parts, it's actually chemistry is linked to the wind industry. As you all know, the chemical industry in Turkey is in baby steps. It's not well developed yet. So once there's a development in the wind industry, it also will have reflections on the chemical industry. We have a strength, we have the company strategies, and of course in defining these strategies, those who actually have this regulation, as we have the head of the department with us, we have to be attractive. We also have another partner, Top Glass from Italy, and they design our mold dies. They have their own know-how. We use their die for pultrusion, and this technology is also transferred to Turkey. So probably by the end of the year we'll be able to do so. That is the pultrusion unit. 8 lines that we have. The one you can see the rings. These are the bended, laminated carbon fiber. 300 meters in length. And then that's how we deliver it to the customer. You can see the green platform. That is the laminate, the actual photo from the production line. Vestas, with $300 million worth of purchasing agreement that we have between DAWAXA and Vestas, and we provide a lot of for carbon fiber to Vestas. For one manufacturing facility, the entire carbon fiber goes from us, and hopefully, again for TPI in the United States. There is the electrical bus, and we're also working on this. And we tested with one material, and it's been successful. We don't have so much volume, but we're mostly focusing on wind. I mean, wind will be our concentration. And that's the integration from oil, how we can go down to the wind energy, how it is integrated. From crude oil, first we have the propylene, and it is acrylonitrile that we are trying to do.
Petkim Ali Ağa'da bu akronitri
So acrylonitrile can be produced at Ali Ağa refining facility. You can see the carbon fiber, the coil, 250 kg. TWEC can produce this, and at the same time, as you can see, the black again coils there, and then with Dow polyurethane resin, we this time have these carbon fiber laminates, and we are using it at the blade and the spar, and then we have the wind energy turbine. That's the workflow. So the rotor blade, it corresponds to 22% of the entire cost. I mean, I can say 20-25% of those comes from carbon fiber. Therefore, it's a major cost. Therefore, especially if we are talking about localization in here, and as a local manufacturer, we can actually provide huge support for you. Now, the country strategy, of course, diversification of energy, which is important. Of course, we focus on the renewable energy, and in doing so, of course, we push the economy up. That's how we should do. Why? Because we have actually a strength in hand. We have to use wind energy. We need energy. You can't do anything without energy. And in doing so, first we need to create the demand, and we actually have to safeguard our backyard. These are the borders of Turkey. Whatever is going on at our backyard, as the local manufacturers, we have to have full integration with them. And then the local content provision, as you all know, especially in the technical specifications and at the regulations. I think it's very important to be reasonable, rational, and we should be user-friendly, but at the same time, we should be protecting local manufacturers. And of course, besides local manufacture, we also have to make use of the export opportunities. And of course, there will be ups and downs. That's the case in all industries. There's no doubt about this. So it should be complemented with export. It's a must, because the fluctuations on the other side can be covered by export. I think all the local manufacturers at the same time should be prepared for this, and I think the state is also assuming some responsibilities. For example, sitting next to me, Aselsan. We're also working with Aselsan in defense projects. We know how they're working. We also have very exemplary companies in Turkey. And so I believe that those companies also should be enablers of export, so we can have an overall development. On the supply side, I use the term smart incentives. Incentives, of course, it is important to have incentives, but they actually have to be smart, because the resource is the one and only. It is ours. And, this incentive somehow is also coming out of our pocket as a Turkish citizen. So we need smart incentives. R&D technology side should be supported to the extent possible. We should be the parties selling the technology, not buying it. And we developed carbon fiber in 3 years, and we actually sold our know-how and by Turkish engineers. Training and technology application centers, they have to be established. These centers are actually allowing for integration. It's not possible for everyone to do everything. That's not the case. I mean, it's important to have a division of labor. It could be the state or the association should be in charge of the division of labor. So if everyone is doing everything, there will be no added value, and we will lose money. So, besides that, local companies at the same time should be prepared against business dynamics and requirements. For example, we actually draw a lesson from TAI. TAI, for example, both for process and quality, actually provided us an audit for aerospace and aviation, and it actually was like cold water splash on our face. And then we worked with Vestas and we corrected our internal processes. AXA in 2018 received quality award, by the way. Our infrastructure was ready, but we were just moving towards another industry. So we draw a lot of lessons, and in particular, it's a major, I think, event. So we also should be leading for them. So they also have to be ready for what is coming. And of course, we need a coordination and a clustering in the entire supply chain. As I told you, not everyone should be doing everything. I'm sure that we can do much better. For TWEC, I'm about to finish. That is the growing strategy. As you can see, wind is at the very top. And therefore, wind will be a major factor in our growth. Not only Vestas, but for all OEMs that we are targeting. And we're in contact with almost all OEMs. It's not going to be Vestas only. There'll be local manufacturers, hopefully. We're also trying to include them into the pipeline. That is the product. Carbon fiber impregnated laminate is important for the country, for TWEC. So once we have it there and discussing what we can do, it is 3,500 tons equivalent carbon fiber. It will go up to 9,200 minus 8.5 minutes. Please finish up. So 9,200 TPA carbon fiber, and then 2.2 billion Turkish liras of an investment. And this is the part under incentive by the government. So one of the 19 companies that got super incentive from this state. And in our application document, wind is at the very top, bold underlined, so that's our strategic goal. And then this 9,200 will go up to 13,400 TPA, 1.3 billion Turkish liras, $400 million of investment we have already made. I mean, $400 million is a huge money, and this is actually a facility established in Turkey, so we have to make use of it. So we all expect your support. With the super incentive package, we have energy, we have the financing cost, and also land allocation next to us. Not very close, I can say, but it's almost at the same campus area. So we'll just move to the other side in the future. And for the critical personnel, we also have such a support. But energy is at the top. So once we receive our support for energy, we're working on a small detail with the ministry. But of course, that added value will be reflected on the customer, so we'll be much more competitive. Thank you for your attention. Thank you. And we're just more than happy to know about TWEC, and I hope that next year or on 2 years we'll see the new developments. I guess TWEC is actually a competency center, not very well recognized. We don't have time, so I'll not do the wrap up, but you mentioned about clustering. And especially the cost issue, the cost opportunities, as you mentioned, and it is a fact on the wind industry. It's an important effort because the material technologies are developing at one side. Once we set costs, it's not only the labor costs, it's not only competencies, not only the logistics costs, but at the same time, there's actually an integrated supply chain. Therefore, there's actually a rough competition everywhere, as Gökhan said. And therefore, from this perspective, we appreciate your activities. And of course, we are just more than happy to see your integration with the industry. Aselsan now, they've been addressed several times with appreciation. So why people are that much interested in Aselsan? And Günay, I think there is also a change in your organizational structure. And so Mike, please do it a single presentation because we don't have time. And last but not least, So what Aselsan is doing in the wind ecosystem, what you're planning, what do you think will be your added value, what your contribution would be, especially the hidden areas of synergy and different partnership models.
Teşekkür ederim Sayın Başkan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, panelists, distinguished members of TWEC. Thank you very much firstly for this opportunity. And the motto is really brilliant. I mean, if it's about a national matter, why wouldn't Aselsan be there? People keep asking me whether Aselsan will be involved in transportation or in energy. But as I said, if it is down to a national matter, we will be there. We're changing shells, and now our know-how in defense will be reflected upon health, transportation, and energy. We've gone through a transformation now, and briefly, we have these sectors being covered by Aselsan. I'm the program manager in charge of transportation and energy. And briefly, I will be speaking about some figures on Aselsan, and then I will continue with what we are doing in the supply chain. And then I will be getting into the specifics about wind. Defense industry has already found answers to all these problems that have been brought up during the panels of the Congress. Speaking briefly of Aselsan, you know that 75% of Aselsan belongs to the Foundation for Strengthening Turkish Armed Forces, essentially founded solely for the purpose of developing national technology, particularly about Cyprus peace operation back in 1974. The administrators have realized that we can never be totally independent without a national defense industry. We have 7,245 people working for us, and it's human assets that we have that are the most valuable for us. Every month we hire new 100 new engineers, make them be involved in R&D. Our biggest aim is to keep them under our roof and to make them involved in national technologies and do some R&D activity. We have 3 facilities working that. Aselsan Macunköy, the first facility established, and we have other facilities in Akyurt and Gölbaşı. We are also based in Istanbul Technopark. And these are the international centers that are exporting technology to international recipients. One example is Pakistan, another Saudi Arabia, another in Malaysia. 49 to 50% we have structures built in joint ventures in different parts of the globe to transfer technology and to get into these global markets. And we have an increasing profile in our sales, and we have reached a profile that you can see. We are ranking 55th among the top 100 companies around the globe. What is pleasing is it was previously only Aselsan in the list, but lately 4 more Turkish companies are listed amongst the defense top 100. Of course, business models, ways of transferring technology have been quite successful in reaching these competencies, where now Aselsan is in the point of exporting technology. We have $7 billion worth of a Turkish defense industry, and $2 billion refers to exports. We are currently having $180 million exports. We're exporting to 64 different countries around the globe. R&D is essential. From the very first day of establishment, we have been doing R&D in 8 technology development centers and 6 R&D centers. The total cost of R&D is $474 million every year, representing 10% of Turkish R&D. In other words, this is, I have to say, a not very optimistic for Turkey. But for Aselsan, we are optimistic because, but on the other hand, of course, we need to increase our share of R&D. But R&D, speaking of R&D, I think labor is extremely important. And I mean, Aselsan has always been the first preference of the engineers educated in Turkey. This now is seen as implications in finance and in the other groups. So Class A talent program and Compass programs have been launched to make that possible in other departments as well. Now, as I said, in 2014, the 5th sectoral department was established as within the same quality of defense. And the point there is to be present in transport, health, energy. These are incubators for the moment, but both in terms of smart systems and smart wind systems and renewables. We want to be there. Therefore, also we want to be involved in planning for our exports abroad. Briefly speaking about the energy systems, smart grid management systems, renewables, energy storage, hybrid systems are amongst our priorities. These are also going to serve for the new emerging needs, but at the same time we'll have some other local projects that will be meeting the future needs. We have some products that have already been in our portfolio. We've been working in solar and wind transformers, photovoltaic cells, new generation cells, microgrid systems, and also we are working on some advanced end-to-end quality measurement systems. Smart grid management softwares are also amongst the projects that we've been working on for the moment. Now, wind turbines are also a priority for us. As we say, it's a national matter, therefore we should be present there. So we started the work with 300 kilowatts transformer. Actually, when we are doing the train drive, when you just work it reversely, you would give power to wind. So the technology is already present, so why not to use it in wind? So it'll take some time to develop the relevant models, but it will be there eventually. Of course, and maybe you haven't heard about us in energy field, but in the defense sector, we've been working a lot with energy, tank controls, helicopter, power distribution systems, mobile, hybrid energy systems to be implemented on the defense purposes. We've been providing these solutions to the army already. And these will be reflected upon the needs on the civilian sector. So the same will be also used in the civilian sector. As I said, the hybrid renewable energy generation and storage systems have already been used in electrified buses. And to bring it up to the megawatt level, it will be implementable in the power sector as well. Therefore, we have the power from technology, and we have many product ranges that are already implementable to the civilian sector. Like, for instance, we have a fiber optic-based sensor, distributed acoustic sensor product. These are readers, and thanks to this unit, we can do some border security. And particularly serving for the trains, we have many signalization projects available, so we can create feedbacks. Why not to implement it in the preventable, predictable maintenance of wind turbines? Again, in energy systems, the SCADA systems are present. We have our own authentic devices working on a SCADA background. Actually developing all of these, we're basing ourselves with the know-how coming from 40 years. These are the infrastructures that we're using, but these are also implementable in the supply chain. Like if you have made a converter, where to test it, you can have it tested in our facilities. Where to resolve noise problems, you can come to our facilities to test them. Like, for instance, humidity testing, cold, hot tests, and we have furnaces that will fit into tanks. You can use it for these purposes. So we are reflecting back our know-how into this domain as well. But don't think it only about Aselsan, but we want to run the projects with our stakeholders. Now, the industrialization efforts are now running with universities, suppliers, R&D providers, and what we aim at doing is to provide an ecosystem. I'm not going to get into the details of the design activities of our suppliers, but just briefly to say, all the activities that are doable in Turkey are run with our stakeholders, our suppliers. The map reflects our presence, our meaning the presence of our suppliers. We are doing both co-design and licensed manufacturing, technology transfer with our suppliers. And in particular, you will see that these are the spots that we will provide some training, engineering support, equipment supply to our stakeholders. Okay, let's say that we have a project, and the project also aims at improving local industry. First, we collect data, who can do what and what's the need. So all of this data is analyzed and then prepared into booklets. This is how we do it in the defense industry. For 300 products, we have run a brochure activity in different domains. We're all doing it with the aviation clusters, and this is followed by an application file to Aselsan. I mean, anyone who would like to become a strategic partner to Aselsan will make an application. Pre-assessment, prototyping, product approval, documentation, and order placement will complete the chain. But no one says do it, but we consider it a way of running projects as a national matter. We cannot do it alone, and we can do it in an ecosystem. And in this ecosystem, then we'll be starting exports. Here, our stakeholders, meaning suppliers, are also provided some support. This is extremely important to us. We are training them. We've provided so far training more than 35,000 hours. Also, we have some, if there is any, renewed infrastructure or equipment, we are sharing this with our suppliers as well. Or we may have, the need for very special investments, and such equipment can be made available to our suppliers under the roof of Aselsan, because it's not always possible for everyone to make the proper investment. So they can use what we have in Aselsan. Also, we are making a deal with the banks. So we are resolving the financial problems of our suppliers. We say we're going, to the banks, okay, we are going to engage them in our activities. So we have some agreements with 10 banks, 73 banks furnished up to 300 million TL worth of credit to our suppliers. We have a system in place. This is about a totally self-design of Aselsan. We're now cooperating with local stakeholders. Most of them are designable, most producible, most are exported. Why not to do the same in wind turbines? Now that we have the solution of these business models, our gates are open to all our companies who can become a partner to us. We are willing to reflect the experience we have in the defense industry onto the energy sector. But the main objective is to have local brands coming up and, of course, serve in the target markets. We also want Aselsan to be present in Europe, Middle East, Asia, and Africa. Thank you very much. Thank you, Günay. Actually, the converter was an interesting example. The ships, the also transmission systems, quite interesting for the trains and ships. These are really important, so thank you very much for this close recognition of Aselsan. We've gone beyond time limit, but I mean, if there is anyone who'd like to take the floor, starting from Gökhan. And then 2 questions will be taken. May I see hands? 1 question from Nortel. Only 1 question. Okay, then this is going to be a brief question to the entire panel. Thank you. We've heard all the stakeholders speaking quite efficiently. I mean, we've started off saying that it's a national matter, and I will be finishing as such. I mean, recently we've been discussing a lot about Volkswagen investment, and it's really giving us pride that they're coming to Turkey for that investment, but it's still a dream. So we need to review our prioritization as a country to attract people. And Mr. Mahmoud made a very good summary of what has happened in 2 years. So prioritization is extremely important in focusing on our needs. Thank you. Doğu Aksa and Aselsan being involved in the play is really a coolant effect. No, you look a bit drained of your energy. No, I'm just very happy seeing that. We've heard incredible things. Thank you very much. It's just, I'm amazed. Okay, I mean, 2 years ago, I told you you should be taking care of us because we are pupils of your eyes. I'm afraid I will repeat the same sentence. You should keep on caring about us. Thank you. This has been quite useful both for us and for the participants, I would say. Everybody has the enthusiasm and the willingness to do that. All stakeholders represented on the table. I think we're going to reach the correct point, discussing and talking over and over again. Thank you, Mr. Arslan. Thank you very much. I don't have any additional comment. I've already talked too much. Final remarks. One final note to say. I mean, Altay tank, attack helicopter, Milligan projects have been completed by Aselsan. High and moderate altitude defense systems projects completed. Now we're exporting them as Turkey. And I'm sure that we are competent enough to sustain the same success. Providing R&D, I think, is going to be remarkable in the sector. And I think the industry is more than satisfied to hear your contribution. Jim, please, your question, and then we'll finish up. Who are you asking your question specifically to? My question is to Aselsan. Full-scale power converter was ordered back in 2016, and it was possible to manufacture the first 300 megawatt capacity. It's functional. Now we're up to 750 and 1,000 megawatts, and we'll have in Soma these turbines launched. But unfortunately, we were in the position of working with Montefiore and Petfon. Actually, we do feel ourselves urged to place an order, but this is such amazing, a major corporation, but the power converters should have been already manufactured at this power capacity. Although we've asked the previous administration to be able to do that, we were told that there is no resource allocation for these projects. Do you have resource allocation now for 750 and 1,000 megawatts? Thank you for the question. Now, power converters, as I said, are being used in boats, ships, everywhere. I mean, this is the technology that is present everywhere, that can be used anywhere. Therefore, we started a R&D project approved by the administration, and with that, 4 megawatts. I mean, from 2.5 to 4 megawatts, we are doing the feasibility, sophisticated converter set, and beyond that, we've taken an approval for the testing facilities. it is too late to test after erection, and we have already started an investment to be able to test that in our own labs, but it will take 3.5 years. These will be decided upon. The feasibility studies will be continued. Whether it's direct drive or asynchronous motor, we'll see that. Of course, we'll check with the needs of the market and competitiveness. And another thing is Aselsan always tries to be innovative. I mean, not something present in the market, but whatever will be there out in the market in 5 years' time. Already approved, and we will be announcing that to our stakeholders. Not speaking about figures here, but we have a very high amount of equity allocated to that. We are too excited to sleep. Let's not get into dialogue here. Thank you very much. And so you say it's coming soon. Okay. I'd like to thank the speakers of the panel. There are a lot of headlines captured. Smart incentives just echoes in my mind. So I think the session has been quite useful in discussing the leverage effect 1 to 5, how we can bring it up to 1 to 10. It's a sectoral challenge that we'll have to tackle all together. Clustering, quality, cost, predictability, these are the terms that have just been emphasized in the session. Mr. Mahmoud says, keep on taking care of us. As we stare in the eye, the souls will find each other. We are one and the same, so we will keep on taking care of each other probably and attempting to understand each other. Renewable 2.0 and beyond, I think activities will be continued. Yes, it's true that it's a national matter, and maybe beyond that it's a global effort to be spent there, and Turkey has already become a part of it. And in that respect, both technology-wise and niche area-wise, we will keep on producing smart solutions. Hopefully next year, in the next year's meeting, we will be in a better position, and that the panelists today were eager to show us the best of everything. So sectoral approach, I think, will be contributing to the future of the industry. Thank you, all the panelists. Thank you, all the attendees. And I would like to thank all the organizers, all the TWEC team for their efforts in organizing. Thank you.